Just a quick housekeeping items. If you have questions for the panel, there is the Q&A queue where you can put in your questions. And also, please be aware that we have the barley sandwich session right after the panel. And this is meant as a mingling place where you can come and chat with others, including your co-audience, and hopefully we can see you there. Given the day that is today, it's my very pleasure to introduce Emily McAuley, our Director of the Indigenous Science Liaison Office in ISTEM. She is a biologist by training from the Western Science, but she is also an Anishinaabe and a member of the Lake Manitoba First Nation, and she may reveal some more about herself in the future, in the coming moments. But it's my absolute pleasure to greet this panel today. It's our first ever Indigenous Agriculture panel, but I'm hoping this will kick off a series of panels into the future. And reverting back to the day that is today, it's my pleasure every day to work with female colleagues. And I'm hopeful to continue my work in promoting them. And with that said, Emily, over to you. And thank you very much for helping me out with the Blackfoot Ag Conference. Without you, that wouldn't have been taken place.
Miigwech, Roland, thanks for that excellent welcome and introduction. And Miigwech, thank you to you as well for all your work on the recent Blackfoot Agriculture Conference. It was a total pleasure, and have a few other collaborators on the line today that were also in attendance. So I'll begin by introducing myself, and then I'm going to give the AV folks and the panel just a heads up that if it's okay with all of you, I'd love for you to introduce yourselves before we get into the presentations, but if you're not comfortable, that's also fine. But anyway, I could have been a bit more organized and asked you that ahead of time, but we're going to be learning as we go, as we often do in this space. So I will start by introducing myself. Ani Buju, Emily Nehiyawak McAuley, Indigenous. Ni mama o Shaskobanishi, ni baba ni Owadam, Ijnikazawa, Odawan and Dujiba. So like Roland said, my name's Emily Nehiyawak McAuley. I am a member of Lake Manitoba First Nation, but my mom's a 60s scoop survivor. So I was born and raised here in Algonquin Territory in Ottawa. Really happy to be joining virtually today. I am a biologist, so I do have that 1 foot in the Western world, at least 1 foot. But also Anishinaabe. So just been an absolute pleasure to work with all of the folks on the panel, actually. Anthony, who I've met most recently, but all of these folks mostly for the last couple of years, and just such a pleasure to be moderating this panel today. So we are going to get into the talks. We've got about an hour worth of talks for you, and then we're going to have an hour of questions. And just so you know, we're actually going to go straight into the questions. So please get your questions ready as we're going. And I'd love to have the speakers maybe introduce themselves in order if they're comfortable again. And so I'm gonna hand it over to Dan to introduce himself first. Over to you, Dan.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan Benoit. I am Red River Michif. I am calling in from Treaty 1 territory, homeland of the Métis Nation. I'm in St. John's Parish. The Red River is right behind me here. So the subject that I'm going to be talking about today, I am literally on those lands. I grew up in the St. Norbert area, another parish in the Red River, and which is all Winnipeg today. Just don't freak out. It's Winnipeg. I'm just giving the traditional areas. And I'm just calling in just close to the Forks, actually, a very important spot for Indigenous people, a meeting place. I grew up on a family farm out in the east in Lac-du-Bonnie, Whitemouth, Seven Sisters area. I hunted, trapped fish, and I also worked as a guide. I worked for the province. And so the Métis farm that I grew up on was small, mixed farm, and I had off-farm employment, and there's a lot of cultural things going on. So I also am a Western trained biologist as well, so I too have both feet in both worlds. And I worked for all levels of government, including Métis Nation government. I worked for both the MMF and the Métis National Council. I worked as a consultant for the Titasqueak and the Cree Nation partners on Northern Flood Agreement implementation and the Kiosk Dam. And I spent 13 years prior to coming to Agriculture Canada with Indigenous Services Canada. I was a senior environmental specialist there for 13 years in Manitoba region. And now I am almost 2 years, going on 2 years as the manager for the Indigenous Science Liaison Office. So I'll turn it over to Kyle, I believe.
Thanks, Dan. Ani bojo, nagon mang Indigenous mang dodem. Mistawasis Indoshuba. I'm Kyle Bobiwash. I'm originally from Mistawasis First Nation. We're Anishinaabe up there, but I'm here in Treaty 1 territory in the homeland of the Métis Nation now, just bought a house, where I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Entomology and Indigenous Scholar for the Faculty of Agricultural and Food Sciences. And I'm not necessarily from a farm family, but, you know, I've often threatened my parents, especially growing up, that I was going to run away and, you know, join the Mennonites and just farm for the rest of my life if my parents didn't treat me better. So there's always that calling to agriculture, and well, you know, I'll talk a little bit later about some of these ideas about science and agriculture and how that how there might be tension there with the Indigenous peoples themselves. Yeah, and I kind of just wanted to highlight, you know, thank you for inviting me to this conference, and, you know, thank you, Dan and Emily, who have been, you know, showing and guiding and providing all sorts of opportunities to learn how to start building a lot more Indigenous capacity in science and agriculture through a lot of the programs they run through the Federal Public Service. And I could pass it on over to Anthony and Melissa, I see.
I am Anthony Blair Dreaver Johnston of the Mistawasis Nehiyawak. Today, Melissa and I are here on Mistawasis Nehiyawak lands, and we welcome you. I am from Mistawasis, the place, and I am from Mistawasis, the person. I recently retired from full-time work for my nation, but I remain and continue to work on certain initiatives, landscape, environmental, climate initiatives that our nation is part of in partnership with others. I also remain on these initiatives largely because of the university and non-government organization partners that we work with over a number of years. And of course, one of those initiatives is our living lab that we call Bridge to Land, Water, Sky. And it's Melissa's turn.
Thank you. Tanse Kakyo, Melissa Arcand, Nehiyawak, Muskeg. So I'm Melissa Arcand. I'm neighbors to Mistawasis Nehiyawak. I'm from Muskeg Lake Cree Nation, just about 10 minutes drive away to the south. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Soil Science at the University of Saskatchewan. And my family actually farmed for about 37 years on Muskeg Lake Cree Nation. And so that's my strong tie to agriculture. So working for quite a number of years now in partnership with Mistawasis through Anthony and folks in the lands department for a number of years now. And yeah, excited to be here. Thank you all for the invitation to join this panel today. It's great to see all of you, Emily and Dan and Kyle. I'm happy to be here with you all today.
We have an empty seat here, and this is for Catherine Finn, who normally would be with us today, but she's unable to join us. You'll meet her.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, Miigwech, thank you so much to everyone for the really excellent introductions.